Hello all, welcome to another session on VLSA design. And so last in the previous lecture we discussed on FPGA design. So where we studied something like an architecture of FPGA. So how what actually FPGA is made up of. At the same time we discussed something like what is something like difference between your FPGAs and ASICs and why we should go for FPGA. And these things we have studied, and we'll just move forward into this and how the actual architecture and other stuffs we are going to deal with the in these sessions. Okay, right, so we'll just move on to the next part. Okay, so the next part is FPGA based system design. So how do we actually design anything using FPGAs? Okay. Okay, so the first thing is, so we have some goals and techniques. So what are the goals will be? So the first goal will be usually one of the concept of performance. Okay, so for any system design, so the one person actually concentrate on several aspects, and one of the aspect is something like performance. So okay, so whatever the logic you are designing, and you have some expected results or some of the operating speed, right? So that we have something like we call it the performance, and whatever the logic you want to design, and it has to run at some required rate. So you have some required rate, say this actually should run in say 100 megahertz, 50 megahertz, something like that. So in that case, so your whatever design you are going to do, so that design you have to take care of the performance issues also. And how do you measure these performance issues in terms of clock rate or latency? Okay, latency is simple, what is the delay part you're going to get, and clock rate you're going to decide when how fast you're going to your design is going to work. Okay, suppose we have we designed this concept something like, suppose you have designed some circuit, say and you have designed some multiplier or something like that, and in that multiplier is going to provide you the results after say something like 7 nanosecond. Okay, so 7 nanosecond is going to provide you the particular answer, and whatever the clock you're going to provide is something like 10 nanosecond. So in that case, so you have something like you are actually providing 10 nanosecond of clock. At the same time you have within 7 nanosecond you're going to get some answers. So that means, so you have something like positive slack there, and the operating frequency you can say that one we are actually getting the answer is 7 nanosecond. So 7 nanosecond means, so one it's a time and 1 by t. If you just go for 1 by 7 nanosecond, what is the respective answer you're going to get, that will be your frequency. Okay, right, so that's actually you're going to find out in latency and clock, right? Okay, so you need to take care of one of the goal as performance. So what are the expected performance you're going to get, and you should concentrate on something like power and energy. So power and energy is nothing but how much power your particular design is going to consume. Because so if it's power hungry design you have done means, so that means it's something like it's not useful for something like low purpose applications. Okay, so you need to consider that the amount of energy consumed by your logic cells, so or for your particular design, so it has to be taken care. And you should also control them like heat dissipation also. Okay, so when power is energy is consuming more means that is a lot of current is flowing, and that actually constant gating action is going to develop some heat dissipation also. So that has to be taken care how to control these things. So these are the things points you need to take into consideration while designing your any design. Okay, right, and you should take something like the third concept is design time. So since in the case of FPGA, so you can consider the standard parts are already available. That means you have already the standard elements like as the LUTs will be there, multiplexers will be there, gates will be there. So you have all lot of resources are already available in the FPGA IC. So what you need is you just want to use them, interconnect them, and make your logic to work. So that's your FPGA design, right? So unlike you are actually going on fabricating all the gates like ASIC, right? So in this case we can say that so the design time from your FPGA is almost something like very less design time. So because you already done in your so lab sessions, so you're designing something, say full adder circuits or some flip-flops, right, and counters, and once you designed it, you just directly implement it to FPGAs, right? So and you connected the hardware kits and verified whether the output is correctly getting your output or not. right? That means the very less design time is going to take. So if the same counter and everything you have designed, whatever your RTL code you have done, and you have to check it after making some ASIC means, so it will be hell lot of time and it is going to cost so n number of money. Okay, so it's something like millions of rupees to get that one particular IC to manufacture. Okay, and you cannot get only one ICs, right? And this is things. So design time in case of FPGAs, so the programmable is very quickly you can program, and you can try to, once it is programmed quickly, you can actually deploy them to for applications. Okay, right. So then design cost, as said before, your FPGA tools, so what EDA you are using for FPGA design, so they are almost usually less cost when compared to your custom VLSI tool. So that this is also actually discussed in the previous session only also. Okay, so this is something like when you compare say Xilinx software or Vivado, we can take. So this software when compared with your custom VLSI tools, something like ASIC design tool, something like Synopsys or Cadence, so that is very large huge gap in the cost. Okay, so that is the thing. So design cost something like is less in terms of FPGA, and in case of ASIC it's going to be very more. And the last point is something like manufacturing cost. So manufacturing cost is nothing but how much something like when you go for, so when you just, that means you're making something like your design, so your FPGAs can be generally more expensive. Okay, so when you want to buy some particular FPGA kit, so it will be very costly. Okay, so I told you, so in the previous when you're discussing something like ASIC versus FPGAs, so when you want to go for a small number of designs you want to perform and to plot it, so then you can try to go for FPGAs. It will be cheaper when you comparatively for ASICs. Okay, so instead of doing that actual ASIC, you can just use FPGAs and do it. So when you want the things in large numbers, then it's better to go for ASICs. Okay, so why means, so ASICs is going to produce in large numbers and per unit cost will be less. Okay, so on the FPGAs per unit cost is very more. Okay, so example something like, so if you go for something like purchasing some FPGAs, example I recently bought something like RT7 FPGA. Okay, something like RT board for one of my student project. So that actually cost me around it's actually $99, but after the imports and exports, some duties and everything, so it cost around 11,000 rupees. Okay, so that means, so in that 11,000 rupees you're actually you're able to get something like after some if you give something like some 5-6,000, you are able to get some one good laptop, right? So in same case you have something like Vertex series and Kintex series. So all these series FPGAs, so which are dedicatedly manufactured for certain applications. Okay, so those things are very costly. So one particular FPGA costs something like lakhs of rupees. Okay, so that's the cost of FPGA, one single FPGA. So okay, but when you go for ASIC, something like if you just go for some processor, so i7 processor or whatever the highly newly upcoming processor, the maximum cost will be something like within 1 lakh. Okay, almost you'll getting the laptop itself, but I can say the maximum is 1 lakh, right, per that processor. Okay, this is the way. So when you want to go for FPGA, if you want to buy one single FPGA, it's very costly. Okay, so but when you go for ASIC, so when you manufacture in large numbers using that wafers and everything, so the per IC cost will come down. Okay, so this is about your goals and techniques. So performance, energy, design time, so design cost and manufacturing cost. Okay, so we'll just discuss on design hierarchy. So there is a hierarchical design. So this is these things I have already discussed in a very first lecture series of this is the 4th module. Okay, so I'll just go in a very fast way because there is nothing to repeat again and again. So the use of hierarchy means you are trying to perform divide and conquer techniques. So it's going to involve in dividing the module into sub-modules, and again divide the sub-modules into leaf cells. So this is what, whenever you get the small parts which is actually able to manage, so that we call as a leaf cells. So this is how we try to go. We are just divide your big system into small subsystems and so on, so that you are going to get your final you are able to do that actual design in the standard leaf cells. Okay, So this is one thing. So this is some similar to large programs splitting into smaller sections, subroutines. This is example. And so this is something like, however important is something like, you have whenever you do these things, so you should make sure that so keep in your mind that, so keep your designs as simple as possible. So do not make it as complex. Okay, so we will take some example here. Say something like, we have a structural decomposition of, say, CMOS 4-bit adder and its components. So I want to design a 4-bit adder, and how do I go with that? So I want to go with an hierarchy. And first, what I can do, for getting 4-bit adders, I need 1-bit adders. So I can just divide them into 1-bit adders. And in 1-bit adder, you have something like separate carry and some circuits. They're again a different circuits. And finally, you can try to divide individually that some circuit also consist of some logic element, that is your logic gates. So finally you develop into logic gates. So this is what you can go. You can take an example here. We have add 4 unit. So this is the first block you want to design, and you can build this add 4 using 4 single add cells. Okay, you can just dividing in hierarchy manner. And this each add cells actually consist of a carry and some circuits. So this is a carry circuit and here's some circuit. And this again, we can say that something like this again made up of Boolean expressions, which include something like AND and OR operations. This is something like AND and OR gates. Okay, so finally you can say these are the very least possible divisions. Okay, right. So this is the thing. So this is something like we can call a structural decomposition of a 4-bit adder circuits. So up to the gate level. Okay, so at the same time, so we have hierarchical decompositions of a 4-bit adder in physical or geometrical descriptions. How we can do in a geometrical descriptions. Okay, so this adder is actually using but this entire thing, and this entire adder 4-bit adder is made up of 4 individual full adders. Okay, and these each adders will include something like, you have some input, the same things are there, something like yes, A, B, that is A, B are inputs, and the S is output, and carry in something like carry out. So the same things are there, and this is actually one single block you are seeing here. So what actually a full adder element consists of. Okay, so this is something but A and B are in input. You can call this as a IO pads. So input pads, this we call this as a pads. And you have some here, you have carry out here, we have something like input. Okay, and this what you are seeing is 0 0. These are something like the positions where these things are present. This start with 0 0. So this 50 comma 0, x is equal to 50 and y is equal to 0. So this is 50 and 100. So and again these things end up with 100 and 100. So in the front of this you can top up with another full adder cell which comes 100 comma 200, something like 100 comma 300 and 100 comma 400. So this is how it looks like in a physical domain, actually in terms of layout when you go for a chip or something like that. Okay, so this is the physical decomposition we can try to perform. So this is all about your design hierarchy. So this we already discussed in the very first lecture also. Okay, so we'll take some example here. So this is the concept where we have an issue when we have decomposing the things into hierarchy. Suppose we have something like example of 4-bit adder, right? So in the 4-bit adder, what we'll have, so we had actually each single full adders. Okay, 4 single full adders has been replicated and used. And when you actually go for using those things, so when you perform call something like functions, say suppose even in Verilog code also in the previous labs you have done, so you have designed a half adder, and so you design half adder, and using half adders you actually would something like design your full adders. Okay, using 2 half adders you have designed full adders. So that means you're calling as a function as a component. So while you're doing that, what will happen, so that means it's a replica, right? So that adder is a replica. So in that case what will happen, you need to take care of, so how the tool is going to take care, because you have 4 same things, same cells are there which is having same pins, some carry out, carry in A, B, and it has some other next to you have the same replica of add block is there which is having same pins, so some A, B and so. How do you name those things? How do you understand this some pin of the second adder and some pin of the first adder, carry out of the first adder, carry in of the second adder, a third adder, something like that? How do you identify these things? So that will be the question. and we will have some example here on how to name those things. Okay, suppose we have something like one full adder circuit is there, so it is having A and B and C in, sum and C out. So this is your block. So you'll try to consider the full adder as a type. So if this is the adder, as this is the adder element, what we are discussing is of type. Okay, we call this as a type. And if you try to make a many instance like this type, okay, so that means you try to make a copy of this and reuse them. Okay, so this type is actually used as a many instances. Okay, you're using this full adder into many times. Okay, so to build something like n-bit full adder. So if you want to go for 4-bit adder, you're going to use replicate or using this in same instance 4 times. Okay, so then, so if you do that, so we will try to give each component instance as a name. Okay, and since, because I will try to, if you use something like try to use replica of this one, we have another full adder here, we replicated it, and I try to name this particular instance also. I try to name this particular instance also. I'm trying to give the name for these two things. Okay, so what I can give the names are, so I can give this one as add1. Okay, so I will give the second, if there is a second one is here, I will give it as add2. So 2 full adders will be available for me, and I'm going to give the names for them. So this is an add1 adder, this is the add2 adder. Okay, both are similar in function, they are the replicas. Okay, and now I can easily say that the sum pin of the first adder, I can name it as add1 dot sum. Okay, that means this particular thing represents this particular pin or net. Okay, at the same time we have another full adder here. Okay, the replica, so that we can call it, that's the name is add2. I have given the name as add2 for that particular instance, and that sum of that one is addressed by sum add2 dot sum. Okay, so we can try to distinct the sum terminals of both the blocks. Right, so we have this example here. Suppose we have this is one particular instance, it's not an adder, it is another example, and this is having a name of something like the instance name as large. Okay, so this entire block is large. Okay, large block, and this large bx block consists of 2 other sub blocks, so which is made up of something like b1 of w, this is one box, and we have something like sand of x, this is another box. Okay, so this large box is made up of 2 sub elements, so this is how it can take, and you have something like nets as p1, p2, p3 and p4, and these are the net names so mentioned here. Okay, so this is the wiring for net 2, we call this a net 1, something like that. Okay, so now once you perform something like synthesis, so when your tool actually perform the synthesis, converting this your Verilog code into something like netlist level. So how your netlist level, how it is going, your netlist is nothing but it's simple combinations of something like a Verilog code instantiations. Okay, so it is a description of your circuits, how they are interconnected. Okay, so if you just go for this, so this we can say is a netlist version. Okay, so how the nets are interconnected. So we will take for example of net 2. So net 2 colon, and where this net 2 actually comes, so it belongs to large x. Okay, so in this large x, the starting point is p1, so large dot p1 comma, and you have ending node also, because in any net have something like starting point and end point. The starting point is large bx dot p1. In the large bx, this is the first p1 pin, 2, that is comma, it ends with b1 instance and a pin. Okay, so net 2 is large dot p1 comma b1 dot a. So similarly we will take something like cx net. So in the cx net, so the starting point is something like b1, so b1 dot, the starting point pin is b, and the end point something like sand dot i1. Okay, so this is how you represent. So you can similarly go for o2 net, so you can just go for o2 net, so it will be something like sand o2, sand dot o2, and large dot p4. Okay, this is how we write this in case of netlist version. Okay, similarly we can go for component version writing. So in the component version we can say this is something like large. Okay, this is one component, this is one component, this is 3 components here, right? So large component is there, so this b1 complex component is there, and your sand component is there. So in the large component we can say, so it has something like p1, and So this P1 is connected to net 2, and you have P2 for net 1 and P3 for O1 net and P4 for O2 net. So similarly B1 is nothing but so A for net 2 and B for CX net, C for net 1. So similarly we are just trying to discuss how do you describe these blocks and components and nets. So this is actually described an example how we actually do this. Okay, right. So FPGA design abstraction. So these abstractions, you can say something like typical design flow. Okay, so what we will do is we will try to go for start with a behavioral modeling. So you start to write an executable description, so in terms of Verilog and everything, how should you do and all those things, how we can design your logic. Okay, so in terms of behavioral, structural, whatever, or this design part. Okay, writing the thing. Then you're going to go for describing something like RTL level. So something like you're preferring something like you're going to provide some clock, and you're going to design something like a logics in terms of expressions. So finally you'll try to go for adding some memory elements also in case of some other larger designs. Okay, so finally you're going to try to end up with the logic functions. Okay, so you start with the behavioral modeling, then your RTL. So then you will go for something like a logic level, so in terms of Boolean logic equations. So after your synthesis and everything, you will get in a logic level in terms your design in terms of flip-flop, latches and everything, logic gates. Okay, so once you did this logic gates, then you will try to go for configuration. So configuration actually typically means that it's going to place whatever the logic elements you got in this particular level. So those things will be placed and interconnected. Okay, all these things will be displacement things and routing aspects are present and identified. So it will be present in a configuration file. Then you're going to use this configuration file written by the bit file, and that bit file will be loaded for your FPGA. Okay, so these are the important steps, you can say, behavioral, RTL, logic and configurations. Okay, and we have some of the key points to remember here. Okay, so hardware designers actually use some multiple levels of design abstractions so to manage the design process. Okay, so they will try to go for different approaches to achieve different goals and techniques. That's something like speed and power consumption. And design always requires to work from top to down abstraction, and wherever necessary you have to go for the least abstractions, the bottom up approach also. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, and the bottom up analysis and design, this, as I told you, the bottom analysis also is required. So when you go for analyzing the things, so most design requires cycles of top down design followed by bottom up redesign. So if something is having, you're not achieving some performance in some case, so you need to go back and start with the bottom level, and you try to rectify it or find solution for your getting the particular design aspects. Okay, so these are something like FPGA design abstractions, and you have the same design abstractions in terms of figure here. You start with the specification, the same I discussed in the previous slide. So you go for a behavioral thing. So that means in terms of executable program, in terms of function, and so something like then you go for RTL level, that is sequential machines in terms of that. So then you'll go for logic levels. So then you actually go for a transistor level, that is circuit. So then you'll go for the layout. Okay, there is a rectangles. Okay, so this layout deals with something like microns. Transistor means you'll try to find out something like delays and everything in terms of nanosecond. So but these are the major things which we see in this particular level. So layout means you will try to go for how much area is occupied in terms of microns, and when you go for design in this one, you'll try to perform this TA, so timing analysis, where we have something like in terms of nanosecond. And logic means what should be the logic power consumption and everything, and how many literals are there, how do we should we reduce that literals in something like KL algorithm, something like that. Okay, then it has something like functional cycles, RTL, how much cycles you need and what are the different functional units when you go for describing RTL. And when you go for the behavior, you try to design time and achieve the system throughput. Okay, right. So this is something like FPGA design abstractions. So we have something like methodologies. So one of the methodologies are, the complex problem can be tackled using methodologies. Okay, so one thing is, so you will try to go for a set of guidelines. So you already know these things. Okay, so guidelines for what to do, when to do it, and how to do, how to know when we are done. Okay, so the modern digital designers rely on HDL, and you're already doing that to describe the digital systems, and So start from the schematic. We can also start from schematic also, but these schematics are rarely used to describe any block. Okay, right? That's the one thing. And HDL are tighter simulators. So you already use something different simulators, Model Sim and ISC. So that is going to check for your functionalities. Okay, so this is actually going to tie to simulators, because when you write this one, you have to verify it using simulation, right? And they're also tied to synthesis tools, because if you write HDL code, it cannot directly go and jump into FPGA, right? You need to synthesize it, and according to your particular FPGA, so it has to synthesize. Okay, so they are tied to synthesis tools also. This is EDA tool to generate the logic implementations. And the methodology will have several goals. So correct functionality is a thing, that is nothing but your functional simulation, and the satisfaction of power performance and power goals. So this we can say something like after synthesis you'll try to check out what is the requirement, what is the estimated power consumption and area and everything. So if you are not satisfied, you'll again go back and you'll try to optimize it, and you'll try to catch bugs early. That means when you go and implement the things, in this case you'll try to able to, if you perform something like simulation and everything, you can, if something wrong is happening there, you will try to catch the bugs very early time only. And it should have something like good documentation. So these are something like methodologies, right? So we have something like FPGA architectures, and these architectures what you are seeing, I already described this one in last series, and so I think it has repeated here. Okay, so FPGA architecture, it consists of this is actually taken from a textbook figure. Okay, so you can remember this for writing in your exams. Okay, right, so these are logic elements, we call it CLBs, and intermediate base are called as the interconnects area, and these are some IO-bs. The same thing is there. FPGA consists of a combination logic, interconnect, IO pins, and these three elements together form your FPGA fabric. Okay, so we'll have something logic elements or CLBs, as I said before, and in between we have something like programmable interconnect, and IO pins are referred as something like IO pins or IO blocks. And usually this may be the FPGAs can have major circuit technologies as SRAM technology, anti-fusion flash. The interconnect and IO pins are need to be configured. Okay, you have to configure all these pins and everything. Okay, so this already discussed in the previous session. So if you have not watched the previous session, you can just go back and check for the architecture in detail. Okay, so FPGA design cycle for FPGAs. Okay, so there are several aspects in my video sessions where I have taken so many other resources from internet to prepare the slides, because since the textbook is not sufficient for understanding the proper way, so make you understand in a proper way. Okay, so that is the reason there are so many figures and content you can see out of your textbook, which is not available or present in your textbook. Okay, right, so physical design cycle for FPGAs. So this is actually physical design. Okay, after synthesis we'll go for PD. So that is the physical design we can take. Okay, so once you're done with system design, you'll try to go for physical design, and this physical design you have different things. So you have something like a partitioning. So you have a number of circuit wiring, and some circuits are there, and you have to try to partition them. Okay, so it's something like have some symbol here, so grouping these three, and something like that. So once you group that, you're going to place those things in a something like square or rectangular box. Okay, that's the area we're having, right? So in that particular blocks, so you have to select the different blocks, and once you do that, select everything, you have to perform the routing. So this physical design of your FPGA includes three things. One thing is partitioning, so which includes the where your circuit to be mapped onto the FPGA has to be partitioned into smaller sub circuits. So then you try to map them. Okay, and the second thing is partition, that is the placement. So once you do the partitioning, you will go for placement. In these steps, what you will do is the sub-circuits which are formed in the partitioning, how the sub-circuit you have done, that is the division. So those sub-circuits which are formed in the partitioning phase are allocated to physical locations on the FPGAs. Okay, right? So these are the circuits you have. So these three circuits are grouped partitioned. These are partitioned separately, and these three things are allocated a separate placement in your FPGA. Okay, so that is a mapping. We call it something like a mapping. Okay, so that's your placement, and the placement must be carried out in a manner that the routers can complete the interconnection. So we should take care of the placement in such a way that the router cannot have some issues while routing. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, So then we have go for routing phase. In the routing phase, we can say that all the subcircuits which are programmed on the FPGA blocks, so there is all replacement, everything is done. So according to your details, which one is connected to which one. So these things will be interconnected by blowing the fuses, okay, between the segments to achieve the interconnections. So three major phases: so partitioning, placement, and routing. And all these three things you can say in your any EDA tools, so they are going to perform. They are going to be performed using something like some of set of algorithms. Okay, there are more number of algorithms are there to perform these actions. Okay, so those again go in depth of mathematics using calculus, linear algebra, and other concepts. Okay, so there are a number of algorithms are there. Okay, so we'll try to look into very something like a bird's eye view type. Okay, I will try to make sure that you understand these concepts in a very easy fashion, so without going into the actual algorithms. Okay, so partitioning and placement. So we can see that this is the first one you are seeing. So assume that there each in this there are something like we have 1 2 3 4 and 4 boxes are there. You have done the partitions, and these are the different blocks. And when you check out the placement here, okay, suppose you have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, so 8 blocks are there, and they are numbered like as I said. Okay, and you can say this the fourth block is actually having interconnection with fifth block, and your first block is having connections with last eighth block, something like that. So when you have this type of connections, and if you are placing this one here and 8 here, so it's a bad placement, right? Okay, because 1 and 8 are together connected, so you don't need to go and place them in a opposite way. Also, when you have the connections between them, you need to make sure that they are side by side or very nearer to each other. Okay, so similar with this we call it a bad placement. So if you see this one, this is a good placement. The same thing, what we will do, we will just take this one and put here, and you take this one put here, you take this one put here, take this one and put here. Okay, then your interconnections will become something like this. So this is actually we can call as a good placement. Okay, so you try to understand what is the why we need something like algorithms to perform placements. Okay, so again we say that algorithms are used for partitioning, algorithms are used for placement also, and routing also. Okay, so everything is done by algorithms. We call it a CAD tool, CAD EDS, something like you should CAD for VLSI. There is a subject called CAD for VLSI. Probably elective is there for in your next upcoming semesters. Okay, so there are two methods majorly we can discuss in your textbook. That's something like we call the clustering method, and you have something like other called as partitioning method. By usually they have mentioned something like recursive partitioning. Okay, right, so we'll try to discuss that one. So what happens in clustering method? So highly connected blocks or cluster of blocks are grouped together in large clusters. So when you have something like n number of logic cells are there, so we can call them as a nodes. So one logic cell as a nodes, and whichever node is nodes which are having highly connectivity. Okay, say node number 1 and node number 6. So these two and other node number 3. So these three things are, if these three nodes are having highest possible connections between them, so then those three are grouped together. So understand that. So highly connected blocks are tried to be grouped together as a larger clusters. Okay, and when you go for the blocks and the edges, the greater than the average weight, that's the same thing. So the weight this again go for in terms of creating the graph we call as a DFG, that is direct flow graph, and that's again go for linear algebra, goes to mathematics. Okay, so we call something like a cost and everything. We discuss the edges cost, and based on that we will try to analyze this method. Okay, for now, for you people, you can try to understand that highly connected blocks will have we are already grouped to large clusters. Okay, so then after forming hierarchical cluster tree, so floor planner and your routing, that is global router, will take care of the other aspects. Okay, so clustering method means you can remember this particular thing: highly connected blocks are grouped together in larger clusters. Okay, so you can see that. So this is something like if you take this of step 1, it is taking here, and this is connected to this one, so it will try to group this one inside it. So it has grouped like this, and this is again connected with this one, so you will try to group that one also. Okay, So all this you can say, you can ask that. So when you go for step 2, this is also available. Why did not it take this one? Okay, see, you may see, you understand that. So all these things are something like algorithms, and these algorithms will be having some several iterations. Okay, something like it, if you try to go first, you'll try to go for plan A. So then if it's not going to work out, you'll go for changing the plan B, plan C, plan C, something like it continuously perform series of iterations. So many times you can see, when you want to design some minor processor, some architecture, it's going something like almost 3 lakh times, 3 lakh iterations going to take. Okay, minimum. So I have done the designs, and they are going to take something like more than 14,000, 1,40,000, something like these many type of iterations going to take. So just that, one particular of series is not going to end up. Okay, that's your placement, and there is a partitioning. Okay, so then you have a concept of partitioning by recursive method. So what it will do in the partitioning is, a circuit is recursively divided into several subcircuit. Okay, so until you're going to achieve your less cost. Okay, right. So try to divide into the 2 different sections until your minimum cost is going to be obtained. Okay, again you call it the reducing cut cost. So these are again your concept of graph theory. I don't want to go in that particular aspects. Okay, so assume that, so you can take this example. So this is your area, this is the logic present, the same thing. I will try to divide in half exactly, something like that. So 4 comes here, 4 comes in the right side, and then you try to, depending upon your connections and everything, you'll try to make sure the horizontal cut. So in the horizontal cut, each quadrant you have two logic cells is available. Then again you just try to move them, and partitions you just made again vertical cut here and vertical cut here. So that again made you each individuals differently. So the placement has been done in a proper way. Okay, so this is again the partitioning, how it does recursive partitioning. So contains, so first step, second step, third step, again it's go on doing the recursive partitioning until you get the proper number of minimum cost cells. Okay, so we have an examples here, how after this placement and partitioning both are linked very much together, and you cannot always try to separate these 2 things. You can say, so this actually happens here, the partition say before. So once its partition has been done, this is happening here, and if you can see, so from this block to this block, once you divide, so we have so many connections from 1 to here, this partition to this partitions. So we'll try to make sure that keep the minimum connections from this block to this block. So for that, what I can do is, so I can try to shift your B to this particular partition and shift your A to this particular partition. So in that case, what will happen, instead of now we are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 connections are available now. But when you just draw this, exchange this A here and B in this side, so then you will be end up with only one particular connections in the from partition 1 to partition 2. And this type of things happens after your iterations of algorithms. Okay, it's not going to happen just like that. Okay. Right, so we'll go to placement, and we'll try to have the same placement. So we had an example of placement already by partitioning. So we have some other examples here. You can just look into that. I don't want to go in detail. It's not present in your, this example, not graphs and figures are not available in your textbook also. Okay, so assume that there are pins, something like node paths are there. So A, B and C is there. And so next we'll try to go for a random placement first. Okay, the algorithm will place first like this. And now the partitioning means it's going to partition like this in a vertical partition, it's going to perform. So then you will try to analyze the interconnections between one partition to another partition, and analyze, do iterations, how which one should be moved, with whether 2 should be moved back here, or 3 should be coming here, something like that. This analysis will happen, and finally it will try to move your 3 to the right side of the partition. So now it again go for analyzing the things. So okay, I've done the partitions like this. I have to perform a horizontal partition now. So for horizontal partition, what it will do, it will just try to analyze again the cost here. So the cost is something but what is the connection from here to here, here to here, here to here. And you have seen pins also here, because this is in your 3 is connected to the C pin, and the C pin is in your this particular partition. So these things will be analyzed, this one and this one, and you will try to make a partition like this. Okay, so now 4 will come down and 1 and 5 will go at the upper corner. Okay, Right, so now this is going to happen, and this 2 will be coming here, and it's going to try to move this 2 in the top right corner, and that will actually will be placed. So finally it will end up with something like, so the different positions you can see here. So this again, it's a complete algorithms, so it's very difficult. You may have something like queries, how they are doing, how he is doing and explaining, but these are all involving something like algorithms. You need to go through the algorithm in a proper way. Otherwise, you can just, for a bird's eye view, this concept is more than sufficient for you people at this time. Okay, so if you are more interested in to learn these things, you can try to refer Naveen Sherwani, the author of the book, okay, CAT tools, CAT tool for VLSI. You can just Google it and you can try to read those things, okay, concepts. Right, so the next concept is something like routing process. So this routing process is nothing but we have a two different concept here. So in this routing process, so before, when you perform partitioning and placement, so everything is done. So placement is already done. Say suppose these are something like placements, okay, and placement is done. The next part is routing, so which how to interconnect all those things, okay. So in the placement phase, the exact locations of circuits, blocks and pins are assigned, okay. So the netlist also is generated, which is going to have information of these interconnections, and using that netlist, so it's going to identify the routing regions. So which are the possible ways you can try to route, and finding the routes in the wherever the routing area is possible. So that process is called as a routing process. So to perform all the nets to be interconnected, okay. And the traditional approach for routing is actually divided in two phases. The first phase we call the global routing, okay. So the global routing actually generates a loose route. That means it will try to determine the routes in a some logical way, but not in an actual layout level way, okay, right. It's not going to lay down, okay, something like a shortcut path, okay. So global routing generates a loose route for each net. In fact, that means it's going to assign a list of routing regions, and it's not going to specify any actual geometric layout of wires, okay. So once global routing is done, so they will go for detailed routing. So in the detailed routing, this actual detailed routing actually finds the actual geometric layout of for each net, how it should be, how they should be connected, okay. So this is an example here. So you can see this is a global routing here, and the party is going to identify the this net is connected, this block is connected here, this block is here like this, okay. It's a rough sketch, okay, daily connect something like that. So next you will go for detailed routing. In the detailed routing, the actual wiring should be done. So wiring will not be done in this way. Wiring will always be something like so horizontal way in vertical way. So there either only go with the horizontal line, move with the horizontal line or vertical line. They don't go in a diagonal way, okay. They never go, okay, right. So this is your routing after detailed routing, how detailed routing looks like, okay. So there are again several algorithms are there for your routing purpose. So one algorithms I'll try to discuss here. So it's actually given in your textbook, but not in this detail. So they are just maze route and the maze describe something like a maze routing and try to explain in some fashion, and it is not easily understandable for students like you peoples. So I will try to go for some another examples here for maze routing. So maze routing is actually it's a commonly or widely used algorithm to perform routing purpose. It's routing majorly used routing algorithms, and this algorithm is also called as lease algorithms, okay. And this actually followed by two-phase approach. So first is something like filling and followed by retracing, okay. So this one thing, suppose this is an example we are having. So this is the particular layout is there, and here this blocks are there. These blocks are, we can say, these are non-routable blocks, okay. So this is the reserved blocks, and you know you should not no wiring should cross these ones, okay. These are the reserved blocks, okay. And whatever the empty space you are seeing in the boxes, so these are the routing regions here actually available, okay. So the very first thing what it will do is it will try to make grid lines, okay, vertical and horizontal grid lines like this, and you will end up with a small each square box, okay. And in this each square box, so now I have 2 points are there. So this is my S point. So you can see this is my S point, this is source point, source pin, and I want to route from source pin to target pin. This is my target pin. Okay, so this is S to T, and I want to find routing for this. Okay, so from S to T I want to make a routing. So how do I do that? So very first thing is, so I told you, so the first thing is something like it will try to find out surroundings from S, something like in a plus mark, something like horizontal and vertical part. So the nearest block for performing your vertical transition and horizontal transition from your S line. So from this line, so I can go in this through this block vertically. Okay, so this is the one number of first step I can go. Okay, from S, and I can go in this way also. This also first step. It will try to name those things as the first, and from here it is going to can come down. This is also first step, and from yes here it is can come to the left side. So this also it will take us one. Okay, so you cannot say yes, you cannot go here and you can write one here, because I told you, so this routing will happen in terms of only vertically and horizontally, not diagonal wise. So never is going to use diagonal wiring. So it either go like this or it will go like this. Okay, so in that way. Okay, right. So once you're done with this, so then you will start with this particular thing. So for this one particular one node, okay, so what are the possible routing? So again, either it can go horizontal way or vertical way. So nearer to this is this one, it will name it as 2, and from one this one is 2, and this one is number 2. Similarly do for this one and this one also. So we'll end up like this, all these 2's. Okay, I think you are able to understand now. So similarly, okay, it is going to repeat these steps for this 2. This will become 3, this will become 3, this will become 3. Okay, and for this 2, this will already 3 is there, so it is 3. Again this one is 3. For this 2, this one is 3, this one is 3. So similarly it will try to make this, and it is going to happen like this. Okay, so this is my source. So I will try to make this one in similar fashion. You will try to go and repeat the process like this. So you can see the example here, the same is repeatedly done in a process. We ended with 3 and made something like for this 3 4 4 4, for this 4 5 5 5, so for this 5 6 6 6, something like that. So until you reach something like T, it's going to perform these nomenclatures and finding the points. Okay, like this. And once you find this point, it will try to find out something like a least path, so shortest path from S to T. So in terms of it knows now what are the numbers, right? So it start with 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, right? So you can see how it can go actually. Okay, so 1 is there, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So I know I'm not available, T is not available, right? So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So this is also possible, right? Similarly 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 to reach T. From S to T I can go like this. So you can find the numbers wise here. Okay, so they try to find out this particular concept. Okay, so you can see, so yes, from S 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So this is also possible. So in this all possibilities, again it is going to determine which is the actual good one. So how it is going to find out? You try to find out in terms of least detours. That means, so it always try to find out the path as something like L shape. Okay, it is trying to avoid, always try to, these algorithms will try to avoid always the Z type of zigzag, some Z type of curves or tour it is going to avoid. So you always try to go for L shape. Okay, and you try to go for finding the shortest path. Okay, shortest path is 10 raised to T to S. So this is about your routing part, right? So hope you understood this one. So this is the final routing. It is possible, it is done. Okay, so that's the thing. And so FPGAs are really very good, and so make sure if you're anybody is having some career interest, you can definitely make it of a career out of FPGA systems. So now FPGAs almost is everywhere. It's almost trying to replace your all the general computing systems. Okay, so that's the possibility of the futures. And presently they are already going for all kind of applications. You have these FPGAs starting from the present technology, AI also, and training your neural model also. Almost FPGAs are trying to overcoming in terms of GPU also. okay, in terms of parallel computing. So that we call it reconfigurable computing. Okay, so that is the thing. So it's a very good particular subjects, and if you have passion, you can try to learn this in VLSI. This again, the FPGA is a separate domain, so you can try to go with that. You can try to build your career on that. Okay, right. So this will actually try to complete your module 4. Okay, so next on we'll try to go for trying to make a video on module 5, that includes memory registers and testing and verifications. Okay, so thank you.